with me. Let's become waste warriors. Seriously, let's get that stuff out of the land, out of the water, and pick it up and get rid of it. But how do we do it? How do we do it? We care about our land, we care about our water, we care about our earth and the universe. Our first guest on today's Big Blend Nature Connection show is National Geographic Kids editor Ariane Szu-Tu, and she is joining us to talk about their new book. It's called Kids versus Plastic: How You
Mm.
Can Ditch the Straw and Find the Pollution Solution to Bottles, Bags, and Other Single-Use Plastic. Single-use plastic. You know what? I can bet that we don't even realize what is like. Here's the long-term plastic versus the single-use half the time as we move through our daily lives. So very excited to have her on the show to talk about the book. So welcome, Ariane. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. I'm happy to be chatting with you both.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's good. This book is awesome. You guys are awesome. Like I was saying in the beginning of the show, what you do at National Geographic Kids, it's not just the book. It's like a
I
whole.
love it.
I remember Ranger Rick growing up and
Yeah, me
getting
too.
involved in the projects. Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
You got
Yes.
involved with it, and I'm a part of a park and animal nature person because of that. And I know they're still going, and that's through the National Wildlife Federation. But National Geographic, you guys have been going. Were you like the first nonprofit, like for nature and science through the world? I think you guys were one of the first foundations, I believe. I could be wrong, but you guys going into these kids' books, um, you're also putting it online with all of these projects too. So here's the book, but we
I'll
want
do
you to get
something.
involved. It goes beyond.
Yeah. Nat Geo's been around since 1888. I'm not sure if we were
Mm.
the first nonprofit, but I'll take your word for it. We created this book, Kids versus Plastic. It's for ages 8 to 12, but I will say that when I was putting the book together with my team, we all learned a lot.
Yeah.
In particular about these single-use plastic, like you mentioned, and
Mm.
like you mentioned also, it's chock full of tips and easy swaps kids can make in their daily lives. Lots of activities, creative ideas for upcycling. We created this book because it's come to our attention that a lot of kids, they hear a lot about saving the planet and about species disappearing, about human action causing environmental issues. They
Mm.
hear that plastic is a problem, but, kids can also feel very helpless. And I think COVID hasn't really helped matters a lot. They want to help, but they're not
Mm.
entirely sure where to start. So we created this book to empower them, to give them the stats and the figures they need in ways that they can comprehend, like lots of colorful infographics. For example, we'll say, like, if you gathered up all the plastic that enters our ocean in a single year, it would equal the weight of about 533,000 school buses, stuff like that. So they can kind of
Mm.
start to get, some context for how much trash, how much plastic in particular we're talking about. And then we give them lots of tips and suggestions and activities so they can actually do something about it and they can feel empowered.
I love that because I think when things are bad in the world, right, which right now it's kind of crazy, you I don't care if you're a kid or an adult, you can start to feel helpless. And like Joan Baez, one of my favorite quotes is she says, "Action is the antidote to despair." And I always
Mhm.
think about our youth and how they're feeling moving on in the world of climate change and political powers being kind of crazy. I mean, all of it's crazy right now, honestly. And kids have got to be kind of fearful. And I don't know how we can, as adults, always be able to get to that. Like, how do we explain it to them? Like, we're also scared. Like,
Right.
climate change is scary. And
But
with these books, I think what's so, when you say about empower them to be able to do something, then that takes kind of, once you start doing something, the fear starts
the-
to melt away and you can move forward.
That's so true. Yeah.
I, I
That's
think
so true.
as a parent, I think one of the best things I ever had as a as tool to raise Lisa was books. and I would look through like I haunted libraries. I looked at children's books, and we traveled during her childhood and looking for things that were relevant. And it wasn't always that easy to find something relevant. So when I look at kids' book, I'm like, oh, this is relevant, or it's relevant over here but not over there. But that doesn't make it a bad book or a good book. It I was looking for, as a parent, something to help me bring up my child. And I think that we often look at children's books. Oh, that's a kid's book. Oh, that's cool. But it's a tool for parents to help them
Mm.
engage with their children, and to maybe say what the parent is struggling to say on their on by themselves. It's a backup. It gives you ideas. So when you're a parent, when you can get good books for kids, I find it as a, oh my God, thank you. You know,
Right. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
And
Ariane, I think
absolutely, and when we put books together, being National Geographic, like we,
mm,
our brand is built around photography, and so we, in our
mm,
nonfiction kids books, we tend to have, in almost all of them, we have photography, and
mm,
we try to be really careful about the photos we select. Our photo editors are, incredibly responsible in that they look for photographs that portray the message, that show what we need to show and show the real world. But we never want kids to go away feeling bad. We never want them
yeah,
to feel traumatized
yeah,
by
that's
an
the thing with
image of
empowerment.
an animal
Yeah,
choking on plastic or something like
right.
that. So
Yeah, but that's the thing that you guys are doing the photography. You have graphics too. That one of the first things in the book that I liked is that you're showing. I mean, it's fun. You make it too. It's like this book is full of trash. It stinks, and I started laughing at that. Because I mean, come on.
because it does.
Um, but everyone, by the way, go to kids.nationalgeographic.com and just Google kids versus plastic. You'll find it. Kids National Geographic. You'll find it online. You get it on Amazon, all those places. But when I love this interactive part that National Geographic's put together, like I was saying earlier, that it does empower kids. It gives them tools, but you also put things in like you're saying, in context and in perspective, like this is how many elephants this is. Like you put in like, okay,
exactly.
8.8 million tons of plastic dumped into the ocean each year. What does
Right.
8.8
You can't
million tons of
figure that
plastic look
out.
like? Even human adults don't even know what to
No,
look
you
at. And
don't.
you
Right.
you put that kind of stuff into perspective so we can understand, like that's a lot of elephants, that's a lot of skyscraper, that's a lot of this.
Right. Absolutely. And one thing at Nat Geo, like we're always trying to get kids context because we realize, you can't assume kids, know everything about, the history of certain things. You have to kind of back it up and give them
Hmm.
that much needed context. And so for Kids versus Plastic, we started the book off with actually a brief history of plastic and how it's really taken off in roughly the last 70 years or so. And it's come to be in almost everything. You can sit
Yeah,
in your office or your room and just I'm sure you can find some things made out of plastic or made with plastic. It's pretty
yeah.
insidious.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's interesting because looking at what the difference is, what is single waste plastic, and it goes down to your
Hmm.
toothbrush even, and a lot of us
Well,
don't
Yeah,
even think that.
absolutely.
but
Right.
when the people invented plastic, whoever, like how that came to be, I'm not sure that. I mean, I don't think they meant to do harm, and they always go
Right.
because they're business people. We're like, oh, we want something that will last forever. But
Right.
when, you, but they maybe didn't mean that it should be tossed out in our oceans and our forests and dropped everywhere. Maybe
Right.
they didn't think far enough ahead because they were back then, and we're over here now going, oh, plastic's bad. You know, I don't
Right.
think they knew, because how could they think in the future that far ahead? But now we have to
Right.
clean up. We have to clean up. And I think everything has a place. Like plastic has a place, and don't misuse it and contain it and see it for what it is and use it properly, dispose of it properly. And if something can't be disposed of, I don't really know what the answer is to that. You know,
Ab-
like, if,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. And, plastic, you've touched upon the history of plastic, and you're so
yeah.
right. I mean, plastic was particularly fascinating, when it was invented because it was the first time manufacturers weren't limited to natural resources. They
Mhm.
invented their own out of these synthetic polymers or these long, flexible chains of molecules. And that was like in the mid 1800s, and then during World War II, plastic took off. It was used for parachutes, body armor, helmets,
Yes,
airplane windows, and then it kind of
everything.
stuck around after the end of the war, and Tupperware was invented, and plastic's just been sticking around ever since. I think you make a really great point, though, also that not all, while single-use plastic is particularly problematic, not all
Yeah.
plastic is bad necessarily. Like bike helmets are made with plastic. Some
Mhm.
medical equipment that's life-saving is
Yeah.
made out of plastic. And so that's why, with Kids versus Plastic, we really tried to create a book that gives kids a place to start. And,
Mhm.
we didn't want it to be didactic. We didn't want it to be finger wagging. We just wanted to get kids thinking about, in particular, their single-use plastic
Yeah.
usage, like the straw they get at the restaurant, maybe just saying no to that, so it's not yet another piece of plastic that's going to go straight into a landfill or disposed of, however that is just however someone disposes of their plastic.
Mhm.
And when you think about how long plastic takes to biodegrade or break down,
Yeah.
it could take anywhere from 20 years to 600 years or
I
even
know, it's
longer depending
crazy.
on the type.
Mhm.
It's interesting as we travel, full time. We're on the road doing our, Love Your Parks tour, documenting parks and public lands and their communities. And so we're on the road. And so you
Mhm.
end up in the world of sometimes getting a lot of salad takeout kind of stuff. And you get the little plastic forks and knives and stuff. And we end up with this stash of plastic forks and knives. We never need
We
to
keep them.
actually own one. We keep them and we wash them.
We wash them and we keep them.
We've been somewhere where people are like, here's a to go box of, like a friend's house, and they'll go, oh, you've good to have you here. We haven't seen you for a while. Here's some to go things on your way, and they'll give you this thing that's called, like, it's like, I don't know, I don't understand this, where it's disposable plastic stuff, like this, like,
Mhm.
here's your container, but I swear to God, we've had the same container in our backpacks for 5 years. I'm not kidding.
It's not
Like,
going
I don't
away.
understand where the disposable thing was. If you could wash it and clean it, and where was, where are we on this?
Yeah.
Because you go in the little Ziploc baggy department aisle, and they're like, oh, here's like the to-go things, and here's, I don't understand. Like, that's where I
Right.
think it's confusing for kids, parents, and I think parents getting involved with your book and the online programs, um, it's like everyone can solve this together, especially during COVID, where parents are finding that they're homeschooling suddenly. It's like, here's some
Right.
projects we can
Right.
do. That's why I love the online thing too. Like, and the book has all these programs, like, you can do this, do that. It gives parents a way to go, hey, do this.
Right, right. There are
What
loads
you
of
doing today?
activities for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's so true. And there are a bunch of companies that we profile in the book as well that have some great programs. Like I think Crayola has a program where you can mail in your the markers that have dried up, and
Mhm.
a child could even organize something in their community while all the kids are at home. Like, hey, drop your old markers off at my house or something. Leave them by the mailbox or
Mhm.
whatever, and you can mail them back. So there are loads of activities, and I was really excited earlier when I heard that you both were in the Panhandle because
Mhm.
I was just down there about
Oh,
like a
wow.
week ago because my mom
Really?
lives down there. So yeah.
Cool. Oh,
Are you
Hello?
there?
are
Are
you
you
there?
there?
Yes,
Are we all
I'm
there?
here. Yeah, it sounded like we
Okay.
got cut off.
It's the panhandle, man. Okay, keep
Okay,
going. We're
With
so
all
all those
here.
live oak trees.
I know, I know. Yeah, we've had interesting weather, so things have. I told you we're on a farm in the panhandle. So okay, so continue on about the panhandle. We're there.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's I'm always surprised when the weather is it's actually warmer up here than it is down there sometimes. But there's a lot of
Where are
really cool
you?
wildlife down there. My
Where are
mom lives
you?
like in the Tallahassee area. I'm in
Oh,
Virginia,
okay.
but
oh,
yeah.
Ah,
we didn't. We
okay.
kind of skirted through Virginia. We went to West Virginia and Maryland and Delaware, but we did get through your state, just like driving through and going. I'm scared. I'm driving out.
But we didn't spend time.
We didn't spend time, but we
Oh,
did
okay.
spend. Yeah, but Tallahassee. We were in Tallahassee this year. We're in Baker, which is kind of more towards Fort Walton Beach, the Emerald Coast, and Pensacola area. So we're in Central Time, which is
Oh, cool.
Tallahassee. Yeah, we were in Tallahassee, and when we went to Tallahassee, we're like, oh wait, we're in another time zone. Quick, recalibrate. But this area
Yep.
is going like this is an interesting area. Speaking of the Panhandle, going through hurricanes and oil spills and all of that.
Mm.
And hurricanes, as we drive around the country, we went through a hurricane here last year. And when you go through this kind of thing, we start driving through areas like, God, this place has a bunch of trash and plastic. What's going on? Well, yeah, hello, there's a hurricane. And,
Right.
your litter gets to be transferred. And that's something we
Hmm.
need to look at too, as, these areas do get trash floating around and it does end up in the ocean.
Oh
And that's
yeah.
That's
not good.
absolutely true. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. And the trash that gets discarded improperly, it gets blown around, it gets washed away
Hmm.
into rivers and lakes, streams, and eventually the ocean. And like you were saying before, plastic that is supposedly biodegradable, it might biodegrade much more quickly, but it's still plastic, and it's you've
Yeah.
already pointed that out, and you get
Hmm.
these tiny bits of plastic. And if you've ever looked at tiny pieces of plastic floating in water, it
Hmm.
it looks a lot like, to a marine animal or an aquatic animal, it looks a lot like plankton, or it looks a lot like a krill, or like some sort of
So they
edible
eat it.
thing to them. Exactly. And they don't know the difference. So it's really, it's becoming part of our food chain, and it's just breaking down slowly in our environment, and just kind of getting
But
into everything.
even the breaking down of it, like we're like, oh, it's not breaking down fast enough. But I'm looking at, okay, it's all about chemicals, right?
Mhm.
So it's a bunch of chemicals, but it's in a solid form, and now it's breaking down. So then it's releasing chemicals as it breaks
Right.
down. And what is that doing to the ocean and to the earth? What is that
Right.
actually doing? So we make something, and I'm not blaming humans for it because we're only just trying to survive and do what we need. But there's a part of us that's always about convenience, right? So we
Right.
make these things, and we're like, oh man, look what we did. We made this, but we didn't go. What happens when you have to get rid of it? And even if the plastic wasn't thrown about, even when you put it in a junkyard, for example, at the end of the day, you have to get rid of it. And then what happens? How do you get rid of it? And how does it break down? And what chemicals are we putting back into the earth at, at what pace? And at like maybe there's too much of this chemical, not enough of that chemical. Are we changing the earth by what we're doing with plastic? That's my
Right.
question.
That's such a great question. And, I will say, the rate at which we're putting plastic into the environment is far greater than the rate at which it's breaking down. So you're right. We're definitely altering our environment. And if you look at something like the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, floating out in the Pacific Ocean, we're definitely altering our environment. And that's one of the things that we highlight in Kids versus Plastic are a bunch of the solutions that some people are trying to come up with to deal with the plastic we already have out there. Like, for example, we've got one of the National Geographic explorers, Arthur Huang. He's created he's taken plastic, like discarded plastic, and actually created building tiles out of it. So in the future, we might have buildings made of plastic. We might have cities made of plastic. Like, who knows? So it's kind of this idea of getting the plastic out of our natural environment and putting it somewhere where we can kind of monitor it a little more, and it's not just sort of free floating out there slowly, breaking down.
Yeah, I think that is a huge part of it. It's like, there's a lot of earth ships being made of tires and plastic bottles, water bottles and things like that. And there's that one dude who had a raft made out of bottles. I don't know what happened to him, but he went out and did that. But there's things that are also in your book that you give kids and their families ideas of what they can do immediately. We can take control now in our own home. And also looking at what is going on in the world of the arts. And Nancy and I have had the, opportunity of seeing a lot of things on our, road trips, our continuous road trip, of what happens like in just outside Las Cruces, New Mexico, is this giant roadrunner. The roadrunner is the
cool.
And the roadrunner is made up of all of these old computers and plastics and anything that should be in a landfill. They made it into this huge statue, and it was an icon to say, hey, we need to look at what we're doing with our trash. And you do that a lot in this book, showing that you can use it in art, you can use it in fashion, you can repurpose.
Right, absolutely. I mean, we feature the work of some of our grantees and others as well. There's some art installations featured in various museums that are meant to be, they're just made out of plastic that was found in the ocean, and they're meant to be, these like art installations that essentially show, like, look how much plastic is found in the ocean. It's supposed to be a statement piece. So, there are all kinds of creative ways people are using plastic. There's one person who made a dress out of discarded plastic that's actually very beautiful that we feature in the book. So there are tons of interesting things people are doing. We also highlight the work of some young people who are seeing this as a problem, and they're working to find solutions, like real concrete solutions. There's this one girl in Australia who's using discarded shrimp shells to create a plastic alternative. And if you look at it, I mean, it looks a lot like, but it's the difference is it's actually truly biodegradable, unlike plastic. So, these young people are amazing.
So I love it. Isn't plastic like, it has something to do with the oil industry? Because I don't think you can make plastic without oil. Am I wrong or right about that? Do you know?
You're correct, and plastic does use fossil fuels. So that's another reason to try to minimize our use of it. And like I was saying before, though, like, this book is meant to be a place to start for kids and to just get them thinking. And, like you were saying before, the easy swaps kids can make in their daily lives. We have these recurring spreads that are big and photographic called This to That. And they're just meant to be like an at-a-glance, look at easy swaps kids can make in their daily lives that just, steer them away from single-use plastic. For example, one fun one that I really liked is, when you go get ice cream, instead of getting it in a cup with the plastic spoon. Just get your ice cream in a cone. You save
Yeah.
Or use
the
your
cup and
finger
you
or
save
just
the
suck
spoon.
it up. Yeah,
Yeah.
just put your face in it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. It's more
I mean, back
fun.
in the day, I mean, I lived in a hut for a while, like, where we
You
just
lived
passed
in
the
a
food
hut.
around.
That's
Well, I
funny.
did in Kenya. I did. And you pass the food around, you
You
wash your
did.
hands in the tub, and you just, anyway, sorry, but it's true. You just kind of, we're in America now, I know. But, this is the truth. And sometimes I go back to our ancient cultures, and they had it right. And we should sometimes go back to that. And I think that, again, is like the love affair of National Geographic has always been there. I
Mm.
mean, I think that you
Oh,
guys have
yeah. From day
shown us
one.
the world and how people live, and also made it okay to understand that we're different and to respect that. And the fact that National Geographic Kids, I know I'm just saying this because you're an editor, but I'm saying it because it's so true. It the fact that there's the kids portion of it, which I didn't have when I was a kid. I wish it was there.
You had Ranger
The
Red.
kids portion, but that's not National Geographic.
I know.
So but National Geographic, like, coolest thing, and yet I was actually also living in part of that side of it, but it is huge for kids, and the fact that you have it for
Mm.
kids means everything, because they're everything. They are everything to our planet, the kids and the ecosystem and the wildlife. We have to do everything we can that they can navigate the future and do it comfortably and happily, and feel good about it, and feel confident, and go out into this world with the ideas and the creativity. And so that's I love what you guys do so much. That's why we keep doing National Geographic Kids on the show,
Mhm.
because it's you guys are really doing an amazing job. And this book, again, it's not just here's a nice book of, hey, get off of plastic. It's like, here's this fun way of how we can do things. You're making it attainable, like, accessible. Everyone can get
Um,
involved.
Thank you so much for saying all of that. And, we definitely hope to achieve all those things. And, I completely agree with you. Kids are incredible change makers. They get
Oh,
so
yeah.
passionate about things. They are optimistic. They're hopeful for the future. They want to protect their own futures. They care about animals and the planet. And when they get
Mhm.
passionate about something, they bring it back to their families, and they have the power to inspire the rest of their family to get in on it. And I
Yeah,
hope that Kids versus Plastic does that.
I
And
think it does.
I think that like the other use for plastics, like you have, take a shampoo container, turn it into a pencil holder,
Yeah.
and then saves the parents money. You don't have to go buy one; it's already there. You have it. Just cut this off and do
Right.
that. No,
And fun and
I
crafty.
I know I like that because that's kind of stuff that living in Kenya, we're like, okay, we're going to do this because you can't go get more plastic. Now you
Mhm.
can, but I'm talking 30, 40 years ago when we lived in Kenya, you couldn't get
What do you mean?
like,
I'm in my
oh,
40s now?
yeah, dude, you're
Dang,
old. You do. You're so old. No,
dang.
we couldn't. The things from that you get now, we didn't have. So you made do, and actually, that was better. Just you
Yeah,
made do. You didn't go buy everything new every time and throw stuff out. You made do, and it worked.
yeah,
It really
Yeah.
worked. Inside, I missed that part of
yeah,
life
There's
where you
something
made do.
absolutely, and I personally feel like there's something so rewarding about being resourceful and
Yeah,
flexing your creativity. And
yeah,
when I repurpose something, I feel very oddly proud of myself. So I don't know if
yeah,
you all
because
feel
it's
that way.
cool. Yeah, because
oh
it's
yeah.
Yeah.
cool.
You're
Yeah,
connected with the past. If you buy a piece of clothing from a thrift store from the past, you get connected to it. It's like you
Yeah.
wonder who wore that. What were they doing at this time? And you start to think about the fibers, and you got to think, even just clothes, how they were made way back when.
Right.
What? So But we got to get going because we got Tana
Oh,
on our
yeah.
show to talk about cleaning up the oceans and all of that good stuff too. So it's been awesome to have you on the show, Ariane. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for doing the book, Kids versus Plastic. Everybody, National Geographic Kids, just type it in on Google. You'll find it. Go on their website, especially as parents, and get your kids connected with all the activities that are part of it. You can get the book on Amazon, of course, all of those great places, and also through National Geographic Kids. You can do that too. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been a true pleasure.
Thank you. Likewise.
All right.
Take
You take
care.
care.